You kind of have to stress test the moments you think that matter, and then you have to have a point of view on the moments you think that matter too. So, silly example, which I made up, so I don't think this is necessarily true. But when Virgin Airlines launched Virgin Airlines, the Richard Branson's whole thing was like, we're going to go against the big guys. Like, that's before I think he was very rich. That was the whole motto behind Virgin. We're like, we're going to defy the status quo, and that means we're going to go against the big guys. We're the little engine that can. And I think for them, that airline was all about experiential. It was all about like, when you're in here, you feel transformed. So I think for them, they probably had to make choices. Hey, rather than like, we're not investing in the check-in process, which is part of the experience, let's say, but that maybe doesn't help us, make the point of we're going against the big guy, or we're different from the big guys. They didn't invest at the time in, I don't know, maybe they didn't have as many routes. They certainly weren't winning on price because they were more expensive. But what did they do? They were the first ones to bring like mood lighting into the planes. They were the first ones to bring you warm nuts, which I don't think anyone was doing. They were the first ones who had these lounges that didn't charge you for everything. So you could walk in. I mean, of course, that's like if you're flying, business or whatever, but like still, like they were making all these changes to the experience that were not across the entire experience, because you can't afford it. You can't fix everything in your experience. So what we tell clients is like, look at everything. Some of these moments are table stakes. Like, yeah, your check-in can't be a cluster, like you have to check people in and they can't, there's got to be some order, and like, but hey, maybe that's not that's not the branded moment. We call them MOIs, or moments of impact. That doesn't have to be the moment of impact, but it has to be good enough. Back to the good enough. Like, that's table stakes. So table stakes, do them well, do them fine, and then pick what are the MOIs, what are the moments that are going to hit that promise. Like, if they're going to hit you in your face, in your gut, and you're going to feel it.
So yeah, so it's just looking at that experience and picking the moments that you think are going to make your point. And it's like a relationship. Are you going to make your point by bringing flowers? Or are you going to make your point by being funny? Are you going to make your point by showing up in a certain way, by texting, by calling, by not calling? An omission can be a choice as well. What you don't do can be a choice. So you think of that, and you think of like, you actually want to create intentional friction. And by that, you mean like you want to create something of an interest, of attention, of a moment, whether you're solving it or not, or just creating it, or, or hey, you want to create, I don't know, you want to use scarcity to create desire. Like, you want to create a little bit of attention, of a moment. So anyway, you think of all those things to then get to whatever it is, the behavior you want to get to.
That's really cool. So when you said moments of impact, that's really interesting. So how do you come up with those in your process? So kind of, what's your process working with clients? How do you find those moments of impact? And when you said friction, could you elaborate a bit on that and how you almost do that tension, create that tension?
Yeah. So the MOIs, we look at it sort of this. We look at it as stack. So we at the bottom of the stack is what we call brand ownables. That's your basics, your logo, your a positioning that hopefully never or doesn't change for a while, your colors, like the things you own, the things that make you. And that shouldn't change very often, because it takes money, to create the recognition. So you shouldn't really be changing that all the time. So that's then you have that middle stack, which we call brilliant basics, and that's your table stakes. So let's go back to the airline experience. There are table stakes expectations. As a flyer, you expect when you buy a ticket that you get an email or the confirmation. That you expect an airplane that's clean. You expect the seats to be, there's you can break that down in all the elements of the experience, and you have to choose to, what we say to clients is like, get to category requirements, meaning what do you expect? Hey, you expect the plane to fly, you expect it to be clean, you expect the seat to not, give you like whatever cramped, you expect people not to be rude, like the basics, but you may not necessarily invest in all of it, because again, most companies can't. So then you say, okay, now let's think of our MOIs. So if our positioning is around simplicity, what does that look like, and where does that show up, so that it conveys that at every experience that matters? So we think at the beginning and the end, so what the bookends, because again, from behavioral science, we know that that's the remembering self remembers that. And it's sort of this, everyone always says like, you're on a flight, you have a great flight, and then there's bumpy air at the end. And when someone's like, how's your flight? You're like, oh man, so bumpy. And it's like, it was 1 second of a 8-hour flight, if that's what you remember. That's how that's how your brain works. So you think of your bookends, and then you try to find what you think the peaks are going to be. And you look at, again, you do a current and a future state. So you look at where's the category, where would you like to be? And then you pick the moment. So if it's simplicity, maybe you say, hey, it's a 1-click check-in process. You don't have to communicate it, but that's what that check-in process is going to be. If it's, I don't know, like, if it's simplicity, well, we have one thing on the menu. I mean, that's a bad idea, but you know what, like, so you don't have to decide. We decide for you, like, it's simple. So you pick these moments, and then you make these the moments that sort of are your calling cards that tell your story. So what moments tell your story?